this is Mr. Murray, who is a World War II veteran. And he's going to tell you a little bit, they're both going to tell you a little bit about the program and him being able to go.
Well, it's a real privilege for us to be here today, and thank you for inviting us. I saw a program on public television about 2 years ago, and it had to do with honor flight, so I decided that I wanted to see if we could set up an organization here in the Myrtle Beach area to fly a lot of our World War II veterans from this area, this part of South Carolina, from the Myrtle Beach airport up to Washington, D.C., where they'll spend the day. And we provide everything for them. We provide the aircraft for them, which is a chartered U.S. Airways aircraft. We provide wheelchairs if they need them. We provide meals along the way, narration with every place we go. We start out first when we land in Washington, D.C. at the airport. There's usually a whole bunch of young people such as yourself, and then the parents and other military people there greeting the veterans as we get off the plane. We get on buses, go immediately to the World War II Memorial, which is only about 10 years old, actually a little bit less than that. And we'll spend about an hour and a half there, and each state has a pillar. So we get off the bus and we go to the South Carolina pillar, and we take a picture of all the veterans, and quite often we'll have one of our senators, Senator Graham, Senator Mint, or we'll have one of our congressmen come meet us as we get off the airplane. And one of the intermediate schools up there in Washington has met every single one of our 5 flights, and just like you all have the flag showing, so they greet all the veterans as they get off the buses. After we're finished with the World War II, then we'll go on to the Korean War, the Vietnam Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, then we'll go over to the Iwo Jima, which is the Marine Corps Memorial, and we finish the day at the Arlington National Cemetery for the changing of the guard, and typically there'll be a memorial there also where they have the changing the guard, then they play taps. We're back on the bus, back to the airport, and back here by 7, 8 o'clock at night. It ends up being, by the time everybody gets to the airport starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, by the time we get home at 8 o'clock at night, it's been close to a 14-hour day for people like my good friend Bill Murray here. Bill Murray was a submariner. Now I'm going to let him tell you about his experiences.
Well, first, I would want to say to you all that you look beautiful.
Thank
You look like the American that I gave my service for, and I'm just so pleased to be here. I never start making remarks before any audience unless I first tell about my rescuing from virtually, let's say, death 2 years ago. I was so sick that afraid to die, and I couldn't walk. It took me several months back to the hospital, back. But through it all, God have me here to really enjoy seeing what I see here this morning, because this is America. Let me be very brief, but to tell you that yes, during World War II, from 1943 to 1945, I served in the submarine Navy. During the period of serving in the submarine Navy, it was my great pleasure to hear a broadcast one night after we had been on the bottom of the ocean in protecting ourselves from the Imperial Japanese Navy. We stayed on the bottom until nightfall 2 days later, and my commanding officer decided that we are going to make a run for it. The Japanese Navy know that they had us boxed in. They know the area we were in, and they were bombarding us with depth charge for 2 days. Many portion of the submarine was torn apart. But finally the decision had to be made. Either we were going to surrender, either we were going to surface and surrender, or we were going to surface and run for the open ocean. And my commanding officer made the decision that the batteries are low. We had people on the sub at that time climbing the wall, barking like a dog, and demanding that the commanding officer surface and surrender. But he waited until night, until we had to do one thing or another. And we surfaced, we turned on the light of our submarine, confusing the Japanese. They thinking that, well, must be one of their ships since the light is on. And while they were thinking that, we head for open ocean. By the time they realized that it was an American submarine, we were far enough out to where we could dive and escape. You know, later on that night, after the battery was charged up a bit and we could run on the surface again, we heard the broadcast from Tokyo Rose, which was a person, an American person, broadcasting for the Japanese Imperial Navy that we have just killed another Yankee dog submarine. But we were on our way home. And it wasn't, for some of us, it wasn't coming home until the honor flight took us to Washington and brought us back to Myrtle Beach, when I heard people from Paul's Island, the crowd saying, "Welcome home, Bill Murray." And that was a gift from the honor flight that I'll never forget. Thank you.
You probably don't realize it at your age, but you are a turn of the century generation. You have been born in the early years of the 21st century. Bill Murray was born in the early years of the 20th century. His generation is considered today and will always be the greatest generation. Now you have that to live up to also, because you are the new 21st century generation. You have an opportunity to become your greatest generation too. Thank you for coming out here and inviting us. Well, both Mr. Murray and myself were in the Navy. Of course, our soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen were all that fought over there. Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, even Merchant Marine. Merchant Marine did a lot of work transporting lots of the Army people from the East Coast and from the West Coast to Europe and into the Asia campaign. The battleships, which we don't have anymore, and then the aircraft carriers, which are actually the largest ship of anybody's Navy that we have. So I have been I have been on board, but I have only sailed in a destroyer. Bill, I'm sure, has been on board larger ships too, but his experience was being in submarines for his entire career.
Okay, and also, how in the world is an aircraft carrier able to hold hold airplanes? Like, I don't get it. Like, what if the enemy attacks from above?
Well, an aircraft carrier. Now you have to think about this. An aircraft carrier is 1,000 feet long. That's 3 football fields long. You think of a football field, think of it 3 times, that's the length of an aircraft carrier. Now, they have on board fighter aircraft that are launched before they go into battle. So typically, they do not get attacked, although the enemy tries to attack. Now, during the Second World War, the Japanese were particularly successful in using the kamikaze fighters, where they actually flew the airplane into the ship, into the aircraft carrier, and several aircraft carriers and other ships were actually sunk by piloted airplanes that didn't drop the bombs, they just flew the plane right into the ship.
Weren't they sealed in the planes, like the metal was melted together? I've heard about those. One crashed into the Yorktown, I think they said.
Yes.
And part of it on the reference report.
That's true. Yeah.
And also, how come they have so much equipment? Like like their submission control and all that, and also the dining area for all of the soldiers. Like that, how is it able to hold up so much capacity?
Well, because the aircraft carrier today, together with its air wing, that's all the pilots and crewmen take care of the airplane. There are 5,000 men and women aboard these aircraft carriers today when they deploy.
What we did, we would sight a ship, and we carried 16 torpedoes, and we often operated in what we call a wolf pack, which means there were 5 submarines, knowing that the enemy forces were heading our way. And that wolf pack then, if you have 5 submarines and all of them are carrying 16 torpedoes, then we position ourselves to where we would take out those ships. First, the destroyers, like Bert mentioned here, because the destroyers were the ones that protect the other ships. We Americans, we are at our best for caring for this world, and we are at our best at protecting the world. Any question about submarines? You mentioned the food. Oh yeah, we had the reason we had the best food because we had less storage space. Britain didn't have the opportunity to have lobster once in a while. Well, we had lobster because it had to be packaged, small. And so, yes, we ate well, and that's it.
Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
These particular children all bought flags in order to raise money for the honor flight, and Alex has some money for you.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate it. We all thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Learn everything